Hi everyone, this is Rochelle Rizzi with Vrai, and today I'm here with Jennifer Churchill, who's the author of Movies Are Magic and brings absolutely everything she does, the entrepreneurial spirit, to the nth degree. I've known Jennifer for, gosh, I don't even know how long, but several years, maybe 10, and worked with her in various capacities and maybe more, and really excited to bring her here because I'm just really impressed with how she brought something that she's personally passionate about to the forefront and made real magic happen. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hello, Rochelle. Good to see you.
Thanks so much for being here. I know you're on the West Coast and it's we've got a little bit of a delay, so bear with us, but it's very early where you are, so I appreciate you getting up so early and looking so great for me today. Always, you always do. So talk to me and our audience about what brought you here, because I know that you have worked as an employee for various healthcare organizations. That's how I've always known you. And talk to us about what inspired you to write this book.
So, movies are magic, and I don't know, can I grab it?
Of course.
I'll hold it up here. And it has this long subtitle, A Kid's History of the Moving Image from the Dawn of Time to about 1939, because I decided to wrap it up in 1939 when the big color blockbuster movies came out. And I really wanted kids to learn about the beginning of storytelling. So I kind of touch on storytelling and cave dwellings a little bit, even at the beginning, and then the invention of series motion photography and just the whole evolution. There's some vaudeville in there. The whole evolution of storytelling and how that ended up being the movies that we watch, and now the iPods and iPads and YouTube videos that kids watch today. And I feel like there's just sort of a disconnect, and I feel like it's part of their media literacy to understand that linear connection from the little handheld devices that they're watching even more often during the pandemic, during the past year especially, and to see how that evolved and how moving images were invented. I think it's super exciting. I was a film history minor at Aquinas College in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And just sort of by accident, I was there to study English literature and wanted to become a school teacher. And then I just kept taking those film history courses. And Dr. Andrew Jeffchek was the head of the English department. And so I worked for him, and he was a well-known film reviewer for the Grand Rapids Press for decades. And he passed away a few years ago, but he was always super supportive, and we always kept in touch over the years. And he was really, really excited when I had my first book published, which was not about movies. But the first book I wrote was the Woodworker's Complete Shop Reference, which I wrote for Popular Woodworking magazine. And I am not a woodworker, so that could be another story about how I ended up writing a book about woodworking. I think just my passion for writing is what has led me to all these different things and learning about all these different things. I think I was a journalist for a while, and I think a lot of journalists love that part of their job. Every story they write takes them into something new, and you learn about something entirely new. And so working in public relations, which is a lot of writing, press releases, website content, blog content, that kind of thing. So all of the real day jobs that I've had, I've enjoyed learning about everything that I get to write about. And then I love kind of taking on my own projects and writing about what I'm truly passionate about.
So talk to me about what sparked your, like, all of a sudden I'm gonna write this book. Like, what fire underneath you made you do this?
So probably, like for a lot of people, the fire was a burning ember for a while. It was sort of there. And then one day you wake up and you get this epiphany and this motivation and this drive and encouragement from people, and you just say, I'm going to do this. So 10 years ago or more, 12 years ago, I was living in Michigan. Had a little lake house on Crystal Lake in Montcalm County, and worked for the local. I worked for Sparrow Health System, for a small regional hospital, and um, I love to watch Turner Classic Movies. It's my favorite network. I just loved classic movies since I was a little kid. It was something my mom, it was sort of like something the women in my family bonded over. We would always watch the Academy Awards together. My grandmother, my mom, my Aunt Michelle, we would all like stay up late and make treats, and everyone knew that they were just going to call in and not go to work the next day, because being in Michigan, they ended at 1 a.m. And on Sunday afternoons in our rural community where there was no cable, any of that when I was growing up, they showed classic movies on Sunday afternoons. And there was no Google then, no internet, but my mom knew everybody and knew everything. And she'd say, that's Jean Harlow, and that's Katharine Hepburn, and oh, that's Cary Grant. And so she would sort of tell me, she was my Google before Google was invented. So I think I just always loved those movies and had sort of a nostalgic connection. And I loved the clothes, especially from the 1930s, the style. And I love the banter, the witty banter in those films. The writing is much more intelligent and focused than like, action movies of today. So that's sort of where my love came from. But I'm watching Turner Classic Movies in my little lake house in the winter in Michigan 12 years ago. And they had a commercial for a Turner Classic Movie Classic Film Festival that they were going to have in Hollywood. It was going to be the first one they ever had. And the way they promoted it, it was full of classic movies all day, every day at historic venues in Hollywood, at old historic theaters. I'm like, here I am in Michigan, freezing in the cold. And I'm like, I'm going to that. So apparently it only attracted a small number of diehard classic movie nerds like myself. I think there was 700 to 800 people at the first festival. It was headquartered at the Hollywood Roosevelt, which is where the first Academy Awards were held. So it had all this glamour and excitement, and really I was just there to see the movies. The most exciting thing for me was that I had been watching these old movies like Casablanca and, Maltese Falcon and all these old movies by myself. None of my friends liked these movies. It was, Jennifer's old movies, and it was just sort of a thing I did on my own. And to sit in a huge movie theater watching Casablanca and hearing 1,000 other people laughing at the same lines in Casablanca, I was like, it makes tears come to my eyes. Just to have that community of like, oh my gosh, these are my people. There are other people. So I went to that festival. I met all the TCM executives, became friends with them. I'm still friends, with a lot of them. It just became this intimate little world of people who were passionate about classic movies. And there was the glam aspect. I went to a party at that first film festival. There were more stars there than nobodies like me. I went to this evening party with Cher, Alec Baldwin, Jacqueline Bisset. All these people are just there. We're just having cocktails and talking about old movies. And they were all there because they love old movies. Drew Barrymore, it comes from a long line of actors. Her grandpa and her uncle, John and Lionel Barrymore. A lot of people know Lionel Barrymore from It's a Wonderful Life. He plays Nino, Mr. Potter. So that's Drew Barrymore's uncle, great uncle. So she comes to the festival. So all these people who are like the kids and grandkids of old movie stars come to that. I've met Cary Grant's daughter, Paul Henreid, who is Ingrid Bergman's husband in Casablanca. I've met, his daughter. So I'm friends with all these kids and grandkids of old movie stars, which is super fun. So they would talk about, TCM executives would talk about at the festivals over the years that they were really worried about a future audience because the audience of classic movies is older. And they've tried to do things to attract a younger audience and make it hip. And they really focus on their promotional materials on the younger hip kids that show up, but it is largely an older audience. And I'm worried too, even though I don't work at TCM, that if there's no audience for these films, that there won't be a venue for them to keep being played, and then I can't, then I can't see them. So I kept thinking about, it'd be really great to have something to help other people understand the value of classic movies, instead of just dismissing them as boring black and white movies. And then in 2014, I had my first baby. I had little Weston, who is the star of Movies Are Magic. Where is he? He's right there. Oscar is not our real dog. That's a fake dog. And so when I had him, and I had my own PR business. I was breastfeeding. I breastfed, for 2 years while I worked on my book, with my left hand on my MacBook. And I just thought, I want to do this for him. And so I started writing it then. And then when he was maybe 3 years old, I was in Michigan visiting my dad. Actually, I had moved back to Michigan for about a year and helped get the new Central Michigan University College of Medicine. It was a brand new College of Medicine. From my prior jobs, and so went back to Michigan for 1 year, so those grandparents could spend time with my little one. So I lived there for a year, and I went to my dad's one day. It was Labor Day weekend, and I said, "Can you just watch Weston for the day? And I'm going to go down to the local pub. It's called the Wet Spot Bar in Crystal, Michigan, and they had the best Wi-Fi in town on this little rural lake. I said, I'm just going to go down there and use their Wi-Fi and drink iced tea all day, and I'm launching a Kickstarter to get this book. I'm doing this book." So I had found an illustrator on Twitter, looking up #illustrator, emailed a bunch of people, found this guy in London. So Howell Edwards Creative is who ended up illustrating it. And he already had done like these cute cartoon illustrations of Charlie Chaplin. And he was just all about it. And he said he would do it for $3,000, which was very cheap to illustrate my entire book, just because he thought it was cool. So I said, all right, I'm just going to raise the $3,000 on Kickstarter, use Kickstarter to get a little PR for the book, and raise the money to pay the illustrator. I'll just send him the money. So Kickstarter, you have to do it in 30 days. So I went down for that whole day, that Labor Day, and you have to do a video, you have to write, you have to come up with all your giveaways. I don't know if you've ever done a Kickstarter, but you have to do all these things, and then they won't let you launch it unless you have a video and, a full explanation of what your project is. And so I did all of that, and I launched it. And all these TCM executives donated to it. A bunch of my friends donated to it, which was super amazing. I had two of my old school teachers from elementary school donated to my Kickstarter, which was super cool. My kindergarten teacher donated to my Kickstarter, and then my 7th grade English lit teacher, super excited about it. So that was very encouraging to have all that support. So it was a good way to kind of jumpstart it. So raised the money, paid the illustrator. He had pulled together most of the illustrations. We'd gone back and forth. We pulled out a lot. I was trying to do too much. So he actually was helpful. He's like, you're trying to do too much. And if do you want me to pause for a minute, or I can tell you how I got TCM to help?
Oh, I think that's one of the most fascinating pieces of this, is that you were able to truly find a partner with them and connect with like the godfather of all of this. Like, that's so amazing to me. So please share that.
So I was friendly with a lot of TCM execs, but I'd never really talked to them about this idea. It was sort of my own thing. I just hatched, and I didn't know how to bring them in or present an idea to them. So I'm just sort of running with my own idea. And I also, I had taught some little film history presentations. I had a little presentation that Rotary clubs and teacher groups would ask me to come do. So I sort of had like an outline of my book from that. And that's what I translated into this book. So we moved back to California. We did our year in Michigan and went through winter and drove through a 30-car pileup on I-90 or whatever. So like, I can't do this anymore. So we decided to move back to California. So I was driving. So Weston, my little one's dad, flew out and picked him up at the airport, at Chicago airport, and they flew back together. And then I drove the car because I had a golden retriever and big TV. And so I just decided to drive across country, and I thought, okay, I can kind of finish up my book in hotel rooms at night. It was sort of mommy's free time. So I drove across country, and it was New Year's Eve, 2017 or 18. I'm bad with years. And I'm working on the book. I'm in a hotel room. So on Turner Classic Movies on New Year's Eve, they always show all the Thin Man movies. I don't know if you've ever seen the Thin Man movies. There's a series of them from the 1930s, and Nick and Nora are a famous detective couple. They're super funny. And so I'm in a hotel room in Little Rock, Arkansas, on New Year's Eve. I've got a bottle of wine and a pizza, and I've got my laptop open, and I'm watching Turner Classic Movies. I actually check with hotels before I check in to make sure they have TCM because
Wow,
I don't want to
that's
stay
a
there without it.
qualifier. That's nice.
You guys have TCM? And they're like, what is that? So I'm sitting there, and one of my friends was messaging me, and she said, have you even reached out to TCM book? I'm like, no. So Jennifer Dorian was the general manager of Turner Classic Movies at the time. She was like the CEO of TCM. And I'm looking at my LinkedIn, and we were connected on LinkedIn. I'd never messaged her, but somehow over the years we got connected, and I'm like, well, it can't hurt. Hey, Jennifer, I'm working on this book. Here's a screen capture of one of the spreads. I don't even know where we would begin to work on this together, but does TCM have any interest in being part of this with me? And she messaged me back within the hour. She messaged me back on LinkedIn within an hour, which is unusual.
Yeah.
And she's like, yes, here's Heather's email and PR. Email her, CC me. And so they were just immediately like, yes, this is an amazing idea. It's adorable. We love it. They have a printer, Running Press Books, that prints their imprint books. And so that's the direction we were going. And I had an editor assigned, and they were going to publish it and do all of that. And then my assigned editor, she went on maternity leave. Something happened. It sort of got dropped, and it was going to get moved to the next year. And so I had to decide, like, do I want to just wait until they can do this, or should I just self-publish? And I'd had team meetings with the TCM people, and they said, look, we're super supportive of this. Even if you move forward, we will sell it on our website. We'll promote it. And I said, well, so Ben Mankiewicz is the host, one of the main hosts of TCM. And I said, well, I think Ben needs to write my intro, so it's really tied to you guys. And so that was no problem. I drafted something for him. He's sort of a smart alecky kind of person. And I mean, I'd known him. I'd met him at the very first film festival. And he said, and I thought he would just sort of sign off on it. I kind of wrote this like why film history is important intro. And he said, no, he has a daughter, Josie, who is Weston's age. And so he kind of like wrote his own personal intro and talked about how he hoped that this book would help his own daughter learn to love old movies instead of just seeing his dad on TV talking about them or something. So he wrote this really cute intro, and so it doesn't have the TCM imprint, but they fully support it. They tweet it. You can buy it on their website. It's in their catalog. And at the film festival each year when it's in person, they highlight it in this cute kids, TCM kids stuff you can buy. They have a cute little section at their gift at the, whatever they call it, the film festival store. So that's how it happened. So I guess growing up in a small rural community, not connected with people who worked in big media and that kind of thing, I think what I learned was to quit. How do they word it? Don't come from a place of scarcity. Come from a place of
Abundance.
What's the opposite of scarcity? Abundance. Yes. And just go for it, and just ask people and reach out to people. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it works.
Well, and I can also, and I think a lot of us can relate to trying to find those windows of me time, whether you're a mom, a dad, whether you have kids or not, our schedules just get so richly scheduled, right? So it's just nice to carve out that time. If you have an opportunity to work on your dream, just do it. Find, like for me, I lit a candle to be like, I have my little ritual, right? So whether it's pizza and wine or candle and tea, make your space for you, because nobody can meet your goals but yourself, and you have to believe in it. I love that you just said, I'm going to do a Kickstarter. I'm going to figure this out. That's what entrepreneurial spirit is, just, I'm going to figure it out. I have a passion for something and I'm excited to do it. And now you are being of service to our younger generation to show them like you wouldn't have all this without this history. So I hope that it is, that that mission continues, because I love TCM. I do. I will watch. Audrey Hepburn is my absolute favorite movie star of all time. I love every single movie that she's put out. She's beautiful, but I love how she speaks. I love what she wears in the movies, just everything. I'm just like completely in awe every time. And Shirley Temple, like all those really old ones. Like she was the first old movie I ever watched was, oh gosh, what's the one where she sings about the animal crackers in my soup?
Is that Little Princess, maybe?
Yeah, it might be
I
Little
don't remember.
Princess. Yeah. But I've seen all of her movies. Yeah. So it does bring back memories, and it's really too bad that our kids don't want to watch the black and white. So I'm encouraged to have them watch the classics just after this conversation, because I did buy the book and they loved it. They read it. We read it together. But I think until you really start to watch the movies, you can't put together, because you talk about the process, what goes into these. Some of Charlie Chaplin, you talk about all of the different kinds of people that are in there. And I love that you talk about the functionality behind the scenes of these movies. So I'm very excited for you.
And there are recommendations in the book of movies that are good to watch with kids. I think Buster Keaton is a good silent movie start. It's sort of like watching cartoons. So if you have the real younger kids, they'll laugh out loud at, Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin making his bread dance. And so if you catch them young enough, you can get that, at least get that in their head that's
right,
something worth watching.
Yeah, I think at every age they're impressionable and different things catch their interest. So I think my teenagers will watch it with more of a wanting to know how it all came about. How did they put this movie together? How is it black and white? Why can't I hear what they're saying? They'll start to ask deeper, different questions. So I encourage everybody to go out and get this book and start, supporting Turner Classic Movies for saving our history. I just think it's so important. It's an art form, it's saving the arts, and I'm huge on that. So
yeah.
So what are your next projects? I know you had told me that you have a couple of books coming out.
Yes. So one is unrelated to movies, but my roommate from Aquinas College, one of my roommates, Becky Kenny, she's a great artist. She does a lot of murals in Grand Rapids, and murals and displays at the Grand Rapids Art Museum, and lots of other projects. People commission her to do portraits and things. We were laughing because I looked up when we filed for the copyright. It was 10 years ago. I had this idea that never came to fruition, of these series of kids books where kids could learn that a word can have two meanings, or be a verb and a noun. So the first one is duck, dog, and it's about a duck and a dog that are friends. And so the little girl's saying duck, dog, because the duck's chasing the dog. So using the word duck as a verb and a noun, and it's about their friendship. And it was just this cute little story. And then I had this idea of like fly cow would be the next one, and just be these cute little, like K through 2 age books. And so I'd send it to her 10 years filed for copyright. She said, yeah, let's do this. And she's actually painting large paintings and then taking high-res digital pictures and sending them to me. She's not doing this digitally in the computer. And she just sent me the final spreads 10 years later. It was 10 years ago that we had started going back and forth. And she's working also, and this was just something she's like, well, when I have a few hours next Sunday, I'll paint one of the spreads. And she'd send it to me, and I'd say, it's adorable, send the next one whenever you can. So we're going to put that book out this year. We're just self-publishing it. And then I'm working on another Movies Are Magic book. It's Movies Are Magic A to Z. Here's Looking at You, Kid. is the name of the book, and the same illustrators working with me. But I'm talking to TCM, and I would love it if that one could be on their imprint. So maybe they're interested. So,
Gotta believe
and then I'm also, what was that?
I said you have to believe that it's possible.
Yeah. I mean, they've asked me for like the sales numbers on this book because they sell it on Amazon. They also sell it on their website. So they know, they always run out and order more copies from me. So, and then I just ship them to their fulfillment house, but they have access to that and they see that it does sell. And then I had to pull together a little PR, like PR hits document, because I did get a lot of PR from it, a lot of articles written about me in, different newspapers and things. And so they asked for all that stuff, and they work with a printer, which is not part of TCM. And that printer only publishes, I think, 20 books a year, and they have to make sure it fits in their calendar and all that stuff. So we will see. It looks promising. And then I'm working on another book that I'm sort of doing in a different way, and doing this one myself, called What Would Cary Grant Do? And I got the idea because I always say that to my 6-year-old, because Cary Grant had always wore a suit well, always was well behaved. Of course, he's a comedian too, tripping over furniture and things, but he was always a gentleman. And I think in real life and in his characters that he would play in movies. So I'm always saying that to Weston, my 6-year-old. This is probably TMI, but if he's like picking his nose or doing something, I'm like, Weston, Cary Grant would never pick his nose. And he's like, okay, Mom. So I wrote a book called What Would Cary Grant Do? And it's, what is it? Tips and tricks for good manners for kids or something. I forget my subtitle. And so what I did was I got a picture of Cary Grant in the movie North by Northwest, the Hitchcock movie, and he wears this perfectly fitted gray suit throughout a lot of the film. And I bought one that looks just like it for Weston, like a little kid's version. And we're taking pictures of him in different Cary Grant, like reliving different scenes from Cary Grant movies where he's doing something. There's a movie in Arsenic and Old Lace, and Cary Grant trips over a chair. And so, I'm like, Cary Grant would never jump on his mom's furniture. And then we have Weston dressed up like Cary Grant. So,
well, I love that it's proof that we are who we are in all of our lives, right? Like whether you're a professional or you're at home being a mom, there is always this bleed over. We don't have two different personas. And I love that you're fully integrating your personality into all the things that you do. And I want to give you a chance too to talk about your quote unquote day job, because that, and because you're really passionate about that too, and bringing your entrepreneurial spirit there. And I'm sure you're incredibly innovative and well loved in that organization. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I found myself getting PR jobs after being a journalist for a while. And then I decided to go to Michigan State University and got my master's in public relations and advertising. So I sort of transitioned from the journalism world to the more public relations world and started working in healthcare. And so that sort of just became my niche. And so now out here in California, I am the director of marketing and communications for an organization called Olay Health. It was founded in 1972 by vineyard workers and farm workers who realized that a lot of the people working out in the vineyards didn't have access to healthcare. This is in the 70s, so a few decades ago. And now we're a federally qualified health center. They call it an FQHC. It's a community health center. So we get a higher reimbursement rate for like Medicaid visits and that sort of thing. And so we have this network of 7 clinics throughout the Napa Valley wine region, and we provide healthcare to anyone. We don't turn anyone away. So a lot of hospitality workers, small business owners, vineyard workers still, as we historically have served. We have 40,000 patients. And so there was a health equity gap identified with all of this COVID vaccine rollout. And so we advocated and pushed, as each county seems to had to figure out how to roll out the vaccines. And we could see that we weren't getting, the hospitals were getting vaccines first and we weren't getting them. And we're like, all of our employees are out working in vineyards this whole time. And so we did a lot of advocating and started vaccinating 1,200 vineyard workers a week, and our own patients too. So we started with the different tiers, and then also opened it up to those essential workers because they fit under the agricultural worker category as we figured out all these tiers. So I love my job because I get to help care for the people who need it most, the underserved populations, and I get to know them personally and tell their stories and use my love of writing and storytelling to tell their stories. And then I also kind of get to engage and meet all these very successful winery owners and, the brands that people know all over the world that I get to just interact with who donate to Ole Health. And a lot of them will have a specific wine that 10% of sales goes to Ole Health. So we have all these really interesting relationships in the Napa Valley that it's a very exciting job, and I get to feel good about what I do. So I think I've gotten to the point in my old age that I don't want to just, what's the expression? I don't want to just sell vacuum cleaners. I really have to believe in what I'm doing and care about what I'm doing to have meaning in my day. So that's really important to me, and it's gotten me through this crazy year, the past year, being able to feel really good about what I'm doing at my job and having that direct impact. And then it's also really brought into focus my own passions, and that I need to keep focused on them because, life is short and things are unpredictable, and, you just have to stay true to your passions and find that balance and not let the things that you love fall to the wayside for too long. It's always a balance. You have to balance your passions with paying the bills.
Right.
So
That is a great place for us to wrap, because that's exactly what it's all about. That you mentioned this scarcity versus abundance. What if they say no? Well, what if they say yes? You won't know unless you ask. And you've done that all along the way. Just try it. It's not even about having thick skin, it's about believing that it's possible. So I'm just really thrilled for you. I can't wait to see all the projects that come about. And if you ever need a date or a third wheel to a TCM, anything, please call me. I would just that would be such a dream for me. So, but I'm just so thrilled for you. Just keep going and keep sharing your magic with all of us. Thank you, Jennifer.
thanks, Rochelle. Thanks for having me.